Joining us now is Dr. Jeffrey Reynolds with FCA. Dr. Jeffrey, what do those initials stand for?
Family and Children's Association. We've been around for 140 years.
Wow.
I think a well-kept secret,
Okay.
but we touch more than 30,000 lives a year. So there's lots of folks who know about us, and I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to come on today and talk a little bit more about what we're doing.
140 years, that's wonderful. How long have you been there?
10 years, although it
Okay.
feels like 140 years, and like minutes all at the same time, if that makes sense.
When something as important as this organization is in your hands, at the helm, what is most important to you?
That I carry the organization through its next phase of leadership on Long Island. 140 years means that there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into this organization. We were the only organization during COVID that could say it's not our first pandemic, because
Wow.
the organization lived through the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 and 1919, a couple world wars, the Great Depression, a recession, Sandy, 9/11, the list goes on, and we persevered. And so I take that responsibility really, really seriously and look at it as though I've been given the opportunity for this point in time to carry the organization through its next phase of history, to start some new programs, to serve those 30,000 people a year the best I can, and to treat our staff with the utmost compassion and respect as they get out there and do really, really hard work.
What is the work that you're doing?
So I think Long Island and most other communities are facing almost some of the same problems. As a region, we've seen the community age, and that the largest growing populations in many suburban areas are people over the age of 80. And we haven't done a great job of caring for our elderly. Certainly COVID pointed that out in a very big way, but there's a lot of folks that are struggling to keep up. The children's mental health crisis is, look, it predated COVID, but COVID put a giant spotlight on some of the struggles that our kids are facing in terms of anxiety, depression, school avoidance, and everything else. And then the opioid crisis persists. I can remember us talking about this 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And at that point, the deaths were here, and now they're here. And so we work really hard to do prevention, to enhance access to treatment, and to support people in recovery. Aside from that, we're still working on the everyday issues of housing insecurity and food insecurity and all the other things that the less fortunate in our community um, wrestle with a mindset that when one person in our community struggles, we all struggle just a little bit.
And, it could happen to anybody. Like homelessness can
Yeah,
happen to anyone. Like one day we can have a job and the next day we don't. There's food
yeah,
insecurity, there's homelessness, and I believe, if I'm correct, when people lose hope, that's when the opioid or the drug abuse also rises.
yeah,
It's kind of like it's a domino effect, if you will,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's one issue, there's a crisis, and then that just goes on and on and on.
It does. And look, opioid addiction is a biomedical condition in a lot of regards, but it's also a condition of the heart and soul. And so when we see a community that sees no other choice in terms of relieving the pain or anxiety or the depression they're feeling than to turn to an external substance, and opioids work great on physical pain, they work even better on psychological pain. And that's one of the reasons why we saw them take off. And so we still continue to wrestle with epic numbers of fatalities. Look, we went through the holidays, and how many families sat around the dinner table with an empty chair because they lost a kid or a brother or a spouse? Far too many for something that's preventable. And just get this for a second. We always talk about the opioid crisis, and we've been talking about it for 10 years. More than 1 million Americans have died. Alcohol still kills more people than opioids do, though. And so,
Hmm.
as we think about the well being of our community, we have to think about all the substances and maybe stop chasing the substance of the day and start looking at what are the root underpinnings that get people to use alcohol, that get people to use opioids, or the next drug that's going to come along. We got to stop chasing the drug of the day and get to those core issues.
I agree with you because once we can handle it at the level before it's a crisis,
Yeah.
more people are going to live. More people are going to have better lives. It's very scary when parents of children that I know, like too many deaths. There have been too
Yeah.
many deaths. So opioids, what's an alternative to an opioid? If you break your leg
Yeah.
and you get prescribed an opioid, but you're kind of like, maybe that's not for me. Are there other alternatives?
There are.
Like, okay,
There are. And look, part of this is over the course of the past 30 years, we haven't developed a great response to pain. There hasn't been a lot of work in this area, but opioids were originally designed for acute pain, not for chronic pain. But one of the things they found with the onset of the opioid crisis, they started studying other drugs to say, well, does ibuprofen, for example, work as well as an opioid would? Lo and behold, the answer is yes.
mhm,
But this notion that you're getting a super powerful opioid has a placebo effect. And for many people, they're like, oh, I don't feel any pain. It's great. That became the first line of defense rather than a second or third or fourth line of defense. There's still a role in the world for opioids. And the last thing we want is people who have acute pain suffering or people with chronic pain. There's a huge rate of suicides among people who struggle with untreated pain. And so that's
yes,
not the answer either.
okay,
And so we've gone from one extreme to the other. But right now, what's happening is there's a lot of alternative drug development happening that could make a difference for people. They've changed prescribing to say, let's start with Tylenol and ramp it up from there instead of going right to opioids. And then I think we've done a better job of teaching people other ways, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, more wholesome ways of trying to address the pain.
Now, you yourself are an avid, I guess, athlete,
Yeah.
right? You're like a triathlete,
Yeah.
right? Have you seen when you get people involved in some of the fitness programs or education that you are making a difference through FCA? Like, what are some of the 2025 initiatives that you're coming on with?
So on the issue of physical exertion, because it really makes a difference for, one of the things you might know about marathons is that there's a taper period. You train up for a marathon, you get ready, and then you basically take 2 weeks off before you do the race in order for your body to rebuild and that kind of thing. The amount of stress and anxiety I face from not being able to run every single morning is huge. It's even
Okay.
hard to explain. It's almost like stopping any other drug and that you go through withdrawal. We know for people that wrestle with addiction that those physical outlets, particularly if you're a young person, are absolutely vital. So are activities. With addiction, we talk about people, places, and things that get you jammed up.
Mhm.
And so in our Thrive Recovery Centers, and we now have 3 of them across Long Island, there's a schedule of activities where there's 3 or 4 things per day that you could come and do. And
Wonderful.
whether that's yoga, whether that is writing your resume, whether that's learning about how to rebuild your relationships that might have suffered during your active addiction, we know that those activities make a difference.
So it's good to be active.
It is. It's good to be active. It's good to be involved. It's good to be engaged. And we know that connecting with other people is really, really vital to your overall mental health. And we think of ourselves as an organization. Yes, we provide services, but we're connecting communities together,
Beautiful.
which leaves us all just a little bit stronger, happier, and healthier.
Now, one of the ways that we connected was through the Philanthropy Network,
Yes.
right? So your participation with them, what has that
It's been
helped your
phenomenal.
agency? Really?
Kim
Yeah.
called me, Kim Cottage called me when she was launching this and said, what do you think? And I'm like, I love it, we're in. And so I think we were one of the first people to say yes. Kim and Liz have just done a fantastic job. And I think for us, it's, we can go to individual companies and beg them to get involved and that kind of thing, but we only have so many staff. I think what they've done is to create almost like a one-stop shopping clearinghouse for those opportunities to say, you'd be a good match for this company and vice versa. And it's been, she's introduced us to so many people and she's responsible for me being here. Although we know each other,
Yes.
she's responsible for us being here today. And so it was a wonderful idea. It came about at exactly the right time. I'm always impressed by the number of people that are willing to come out and make a difference in their own communities.
It's a cross-pollination.
Yeah.
It's different nonprofits, it's different business leaders. They're all coming together and they're like, oh, what are we doing today? Whether it's we're packing bags or we're painting rocks or we're doing this, and
Right.
it's kind of, it's beautiful.
And then they can talk about the feeling they get from volunteering and helping and share that with others. I think a lot of folks are like, well, I never volunteered before. It's a pain. You got to drive there.
Make it
and
easy.
once they do it, they're sold because it feels so darn good.
It's activity-based,
Yeah.
once again, being active.
Yes.
So the secret to any journey, I guess, is just to take part, to participate, to be alive, to be present, right?
Participate, and I think, and bring your whole self to it.
I love you. You're amazing. You're a good person. You're a good egg. You're a good leader. Legislation has gotten passed because of your efforts, so
Yeah,
congratulations on that. I see you
thank
up in
you.
Albany all the time. How can the local community get involved to make a difference? What do we need to do?
So look, I think connect up with, if you have a particular cause, as you know, I'm a cancer survivor 2 times now, and do some work in that space, PSAs and some lobbying and that kind of thing. If you have something that's impacted your family or something that you feel really passionate about, you have to feel kind of passionate about it. Then you should jump into that and find a way to get involved and give something back, particularly if you're wrestling with a medical condition, or maybe as a kid you struggle with something and you're not struggling anymore. You have a family member, someone that overcame a challenge, get involved in that and help other people get over that hump. It makes a huge difference.
Celebrating your health, celebrating your journey, and thank you for all the lives that you're helping. You're rocking it, man. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Jeffrey Reynolds. If you want to make a difference in your community, get active, get involved, find your passion, find your it in life, and just go for it. Thanks for watching.